You were once the cornerstone of a franchise.
I was then.
Stay with me, bro. You were once the cornerstone of a franchise, and you're not even a fourth option, and you're okay with that. I'm saying if when we look at stars, we go like this: retire before you do that. Wow. And I'm not. Just think about it. I'm not saying Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge can't play. I'm saying they can play, so they should want to compete. Yeah. Instead of tipping the scales on a particular franchise.
They ain't tipping those scales.
With Kyrie, listen, with Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, do you know that all LaMarcus Aldridge has to do is stand on one baseline or the other, literally stand still? He don't even have to run.
You get a lot of guys
He can literally stand still and average 10 to 15 a game, shooting uncontested shots like he's in warm-ups because you got to preoccupy yourself with those guys.
I disagree with both of your points, Perk. I disagree with you and Stephen A. that they should want to compete in a losing effort at this point in their careers. I will say this. I also disagree with them that this ring will say anything about their careers, other than they were willing to purchase a ring. I don't think, the players have gotten the message that I better win a ring or I'll never hear the end of it. I don't think KD going to Golden State proved anything because you can't lose there. I don't think that LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin winning a ring with the Nets will prove anything.
But Max, you were one of the same people in the world that was saying that Carmelo Anthony was done, right?
Yep.
You were one of the few that was saying that. You were saying that he wasn't moving the needle, and he still had a lot of basketball left in him.
Prove me wrong.
Wanted to show the world that. So look, let me give you an example. I know a lot of people were criticizing LeBron James, right? Saying that all these jokes and whatever, saying that, hey, Carmelo Anthony is his banana boat buddy and all this. Why is he not without a job? He could be on the Lakers. Here's why he wasn't on the Lakers. And they were saying that he should replace Jared Dudley. But here's why Carmelo wasn't probably on the Lakers, because he probably wasn't going to accept a lesser role like a Jared Dudley, probably not being able to dress out for 10 to 15 games or having to show up to work, not being able to play. Carmelo wasn't going to be okay with that. And that's the difference between being a role player and used to being a cornerstone like Stephen A. That's a big difference.
Oh, and Max, here's the other point that I want to make to you. You act like LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin got their double ARP cards. LaMarcus Aldridge, his game wasn't predicated on athleticism. He's a 6'11" jump shooter, essentially.
But not a
who can play with
shooter.
Who can play with his back to the basket, but he's a 6'11" jump shooter. He's 35. Blake Griffin.
And he don't shoot the three.
And Blake Griffin is 32. These guys.
But his game was predicated on athletics.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say to you is, again, remember, I understand it. I'm not, and this is the part, I'm not criticizing them. I'm simply saying, as a basketball fan, I would have preferred to see if it's both of them. At least one go to Brooklyn and one go somewhere else, rather than both of them being on Brooklyn. And if you go somewhere, let's make sure that we're trying to compete as opposed to tip the scale so dramatically that we're willing to be former franchise players who collected hundreds of millions of dollars that's perfectly content with playing a fifth or sixth man role on a team.
Karl Malone and Gary Payton went to the Lakers at a certain point.
They
Bill Walton was
started,
on the Celtics. Okay, fine, they started, but still. And actually, they didn't wind up winning championships.
Well, they went to the finals, and Gary Payton got a chip.
They were cornerstones.
But they're teams that took their teams to the finals. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge never did that.
So the fact that they didn't take the fact that they weren't as good as Karl Malone and Gary Payton.
I'm looking at you, Max, and I'm saying this. Gary Payton went to the finals.
He's a great player.
Jordan stopped him.
Right.
No shame in that.
Okay.
No shame in that.
You're holding it against
Karl Malone. Jordan stopped them twice.
Sure.
Okay. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge never did that.
So you're holding it against Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge that they weren't as good as Gary Payton and Karl Malone? They weren't.
No, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that when you're the cornerstone of a franchise, there is no crime in us looking at you and saying, yo, man, what you jumping on the bandwagon for? Go up and contribute to your own damn bandwagon.
Here's my question.
You still can play. You're not a scrub.
You
can
still
play.
I got a question for you and Stephen A.
Yeah.
Do you think that competitive gene or whatever it is that's not there, in your opinions, that leads them to join the Nets is the reason they weren't greater players? Looking back on it? Did other cats have that and they didn't, and that's why? Is that what you're – if you're saying that, you got something to talk about.
In fairness to your question, I never thought about it. I'd have to think about it before answering that question and really dissect it. I never thought about it. If
that's what you're saying, we could talk about that.
I never thought about it, but I do know this, and join me here, Kendrick. When LaMarcus Aldridge went from Portland to San Antonio, that was considered a huge pickup that put San Antonio back in title contention. When Blake Griffin was, yes, it did, because Tim Duncan was still there.
Title contention?
Tim Duncan was still there, so was Kawhi Leonard and Manu Ginobili. Yes, it was. Okay? Then when Blake Griffin was in L.A., with Lob City, remember, we had expectations for him with Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. And can't forget my man Jamal Crawford and one.
If you're a power forward who's not a
brother right there, something special. I'm just saying.
There's no such thing as a power forward who can't stretch it out at this point, who's going to be the best player in the championship
You're
team.
dissecting it, and nobody's dissecting it from a basketball perspective the way you are right now. We're talking about the mindset of individuals who got paid to be franchise players.
So what I'm saying is, if you're saying that, and that's what held them back as players, that to me is a point we could debate.
Okay.
But if you're saying just at this point now you don't like it, okay.
Once you have that mentality, you always have that mentality. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.